Okay, imagine this for a second. You're at home, maybe just in your living room, grabbing a cup of coffee, and you look out the window,
Mm-hmm.
and there's someone there, a stranger, a vendor, maybe even a neighbor, and they do something rude, just a gesture.
Right.
Maybe they spit.
Mm-hmm.
Or they adjust their clothes in a really crude way. Now, your first instinct is probably, why, that guy's a jerk, right?
Of course. Just brush it off.
You brush it off, you go back to your coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But what if I told you that gesture wasn't random at all? What if that specific movement, at that exact second, was part of a military-grade psychological operation designed to drive you slowly out of your mind?
I know how that sounds. It sounds like we're about to dive straight into tinfoil hat territory.
Honestly, it does. If I look out my window and see a guy being rude, my first thought isn't urban warfare. It's just rude guy.
Or guy with an itch.
Yeah, exactly. To jump from that to psychological operation feels like a huge leap. Isn't this just, encouraging paranoia?
That is a completely fair reaction. And frankly, that skepticism is exactly what the system relies on. We're looking at a document today titled Report, The Politics of Communication and Gestures as War. It's dated recently, January 18th, 2026, and it's authored by an entity calling itself Observations of the Storyteller. And the core argument here is that because we dismiss these things as just rude or bad manners, we miss the tactical coordination happening right under our noses.
So you're saying my skepticism is actually part of the trap?
In a way, yes. The report argues that psychological warfare isn't just for traditional battlefields with, tanks and drones. It says that bad actors, whether they're hostile neighbors, political groups, whatever, can weaponize the civilian environment.
So they turn your street, the view from your window,
into a theater of war.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to invade your home physically. It's to use nonverbal communication, specifically microaggressions, to isolate and destabilize you within what it calls your domestic sanctuary.
That phrase, domestic sanctuary, that
Yeah.
really hit me when I was reading through this. Because it's the one place you're supposed to feel safe.
It is. The world can be chaotic, but when you lock your front door, you're supposed to be able to just exhale.
And this report is basically a manual on how to breach that sanctuary without ever breaking a lock. It's all psychological intrusion.
Precisely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to get into this terrifying premise. We need to understand how it works. We're going to unpack the 3 phases the report outlines: intelligence gathering, psyops, and something called the cadre system.
Right.
And then, because we never want to leave you feeling hopeless, and this report gets pretty bleak, we're going to talk about the solution: pattern recognition.
Which is a crucial pivot.
Yeah.
The report moves from just describing the victimization to providing a very strict, almost robotic, analytical framework for stopping it.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Phase I. The report calls this intelligence gathering and asset reconnaissance. Before a single rude gesture is even made, there's a setup. This isn't just someone losing their temper one day.
No, the report emphasizes this is a calculated campaign. And like any military campaign, it starts with knowing the terrain. The first step is geographic mapping.
Which means they are studying the residence, knowing the layout, where the windows are, the balconies, all that.
Right, but that's the easy part. You can see that from the street. The report goes much deeper into psychological profiling.
So like human intelligence.
Exactly. The instigators need to determine the community's triggers.
How do they even get that information? They're not bugging the house, are they?
They don't have to. The report suggests a period of observation. They just listen, they hear arguments, laughter, they figure out what makes the target angry. If you yell at a stray dog, they note, okay, short fuse.
If you're really careful about your garden, they note that disorder bothers you.
Yes. They are building a profile of your emotional buttons so they can push them later.
That is deeply creeping me out. It turns every interaction you've ever had in your neighborhood into a data point for somebody else.
And the report also mentions social stratification as part of this phase.
Right, so dividing the battlefield.
They map the neighborhood into groups, those for the target family and those against them. But crucially, they identify the neutral parties who can be swayed.
And that leads us to the most insidious part of phase 1, the cadre and asset selection.
Yeah.
Because the main instigator isn't actually the one doing the harassing.
No, direct conflict leaves a paper trail. If your neighbor screams at you, you can record it, call the police.
You have evidence.
You have evidence. So they recruit a cadre. Think of it as outsourcing the aggression.
Like a gig economy for harassment.
That's a great analogy. The report calls them assets. We're talking about mobile vendors, housekeeping staff, delivery people, laborers on a nearby construction site.
But wait, why would a vegetable seller or a construction worker agree to harass me? They don't even know me.
It's transactional. Sometimes it's small tips, but more often it's about social capital. If the instigator is a powerful figure in the neighborhood, these vendors want to stay on their good side to keep working there.
So it's almost feudal.
It is. And the report notes these people are selected specifically because they have plausible deniability.
Right, because if I confront the main neighbor, they can just say, I didn't do anything. That was just some random guy selling vegetables.
It insulates the instigator. It turns the neighborhood into a chessboard. And if you yell at the vegetable seller, you're the one who looks like a classist jerk. You lose the PR war immediately.
It really is a trap.
Yeah.
Okay, so phase 2, targeted psychological operations or PSYOPs. And this is where the report gets very specific.
And pretty dark.
It does. The tactics are tailored specifically to the demographic of the target. They don't use the same playbook for everyone.
Let's start with the tactics against women. The report describes this as weaponizing public spaces, and it mentions specific cultural clothing, dhotis, and saris, which suggests a South Asian context, but the tactic itself feels universal. The cultural context provides the costume, but the psychological mechanism is absolutely universal. The objective is to breach a woman's sense of safety and modesty.
Oh.
The report mentions coordinated exposure. This involves assets being instructed to perform specific acts like genital scratching or clothing adjustments, specifically when the target enters their field of vision.
So it's the timing that makes it a weapon. It's not just a guy adjusting his pants.
Exactly. It happens the moment the target appears, say, to pick up the newspaper. It turns a mundane daily task into a sexually charged, threatening interaction.
And what about this detail, the aversion of eye contact? The perpetrators are told to look away while they do it.
That is a critical psychological component. It's pure gaslighting. If they looked you in the eye, that's overt harassment. You could yell, "Stop that."
But because they're looking away.
They make the act feel intentional to you, but completely ambiguous to anyone else. If you call them out, they can say, "Lady, I was just fixing my belt. I didn't even see you." But you know.
Yeah.
You know they saw you.
And that uncertainty is the weapon. It makes you sound like you're overreacting or, worse, hallucinating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the report says when the target is male, specifically middle-aged or elderly men, the tactics shift. It's less about sexual threat and more about territorial aggression.
For men, the goal is to challenge their dominance or peace within their own territory. The report outlines something it calls the female attack mode.
Which, again, sounds like a military term.
It functions like a checkmate. It involves using female residents or vendors to create these high-stakes social confrontations. Things like lingerie scratching or redraping a sari right near the target's gate.
So if the man says anything,
He's immediately the aggressor. He's a man attacking a woman. But if he says nothing, he has to just stand there and endure this breach of social norms in front of his own house.
he's powerless.
He's put into a state of helplessness.
And then there's the acoustic war. This one I feel like people might recognize more easily. High decibel disturbances.
But again, look at the precision. It's not just random noise. It mentions odd hours, 2 a.m., 11 p.m., bike stunts, revving engines, even hitting boundary walls. It's designed specifically to disrupt sleep.
Sleep deprivation. That's a literal torture tactic.
Exactly. Fatigue lowers your emotional resistance. It makes you irritable, irrational.
And they combine this with sensory irritation. Group smoking near open windows, or, and this is just gross disposing of things like soiled diapers into the target's drainage.
It's total environmental hostility. And connecting all of this is what the report calls perimeter scanning.
Fixed gazing, just someone watching you day and night.
It communicates one single message. We are here, we are watching, you are never alone. It creates a siege mentality.
So we have the setup, we have the tactics. How do they pull this off without getting caught? This brings us to phase 3, the system and surveillance synchronicity. That term, synchronicity. So what does that really mean?
Think about when you're browsing online. You mentioned buying hiking boots, and 10 minutes later, you see an ad for them.
Right, it feels like your phone is listening.
Surveillance synchronicity is the real-world analog version of that. The environment reacts to you.
So you open your front door.
And a bike revs its engine instantly. You turn on the kitchen light, and someone outside starts shouting.
It's responsive.
Yeah.
It's not just noise. It's noise because you moved.
Precisely. And that causal link between Your action and their reaction is what destroys your peace of mind. You start to feel like you're living in a glass house.
And the beauty of the system, for the attacker, is the legal insulation. The report is very clear on this. The cadre is warned not to cross physical perimeters.
Don't trespass. Don't break a window. Stick to gestures.
Because scratching your nose or revving a bike,
Yeah.
those fall into legal gray areas. The police can't do anything.
If you call the cops and say, my neighbor's scratching himself when I pick up the paper, they're going to look at you like you've lost your mind.
Which is the goal. The report says the aim is to reach the heart of the target.
Yeah.
To make them feel an omnipresent, untraceable threat, and eventually make them feel crazy or paranoid.
You become the agent of your own destruction. The more you fight back with emotion, the more you lose.
Okay, that is heavy. And if the report ended there, I think we'd all just want to move to a cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. There is a whole section on preventive pattern recognition. This is where we flip the script.
And the fundamental shift is internal. The target has to move from a reactive emotional state to a proactive analytical state.
Right.
That sounds great on paper, but when someone has just insulted you in your own driveway, how do you actually flip that switch?
It demands you treat your life like a crime scene investigation. You stop journaling your feelings, I felt scared today, and you start building what the report calls a matrix of intent.
Which is basically a spreadsheet.
It is. Most victims fail because they see incidents in isolation. Monday was weird. The matrix forces you to link 3 data points: the actor, the gesture, and the trigger. You stop looking for rudeness. You start hunting for correlations.
So let's play this out. I walk to the window. I see the vendor outside. He does the crude gesture. My blood boils. Instead of screaming, what do?
You freeze. You take a breath, and you go to your log. Column 1, actor, mobile ender, blue shirt. Column 2, gesture, indecent exposure. Column 3, trigger. Target, that's you approached window at 10:42 a.m.
And you do that every single time.
Every single time. Over a week, a month. When you link the gesture to the trigger repeatedly, you prove the intent, you prove the synchronicity. It's not a coincidence if it happens 40 times, specifically when you walk to the window.
And the report talks about identifying the spotter. This was a real aha moment for me. The vendor on the street can't see me inside my house.
Exactly. The mobile assets, the bikers, the vendors, they don't have X-ray vision. Someone has to tell them the target is moving. The spotter is usually a resident, someone stationary who signals the assets.
So while you're staring at the guy on the bike, you should actually be looking for the neighbor on the balcony with their phone.
Find the signal and you understand the whole network.
The report also offers some very practical technical deterrents.
Right, hardening the perimeter. It suggests high-def cameras, but specifically with wide-angle lenses focused on conflict zones, gates, boundary walls.
And audio recording.
Essential. The acoustic war is so hard to prove visually. You need good microphones to capture the decibel levels and the specific timing.
And I like this idea of mirroring the geese with reflective window films.
It denies the enemy their intelligence. If they can't see into the house, they can't sync their gestures. It breaks the feedback loop and forces them out into the public sphere where they're easily recorded.
And speaking of recording, there's the lens effect. This is a psychological countermove.
It's a power move. The report says when a gesture occurs, you show no anger, no fear. Instead, you just calmly produce your smartphone and record silently.
You don't even say anything.
No, silence is better. It shifts the dynamic. You go from harasser victim to actor evidence. You're no longer a person they're bothering. You're a camera documenting their behavior.
And what about the community counter-narrative?
Even in a hostile neighborhood, there's what the report calls a neutral 1%. Engaging with them, building a rapport, it shrinks the aggressor's operational space, makes it harder for them to lie about you.
It's about taking back control. Reading this, I went from feeling scared to feeling, I don't know, almost empowered. It turns a nightmare into a science project.
That's the whole goal of the SOP, the standard operating procedure outlined in the end. It converts gestures as war into just data.
So once you have that spreadsheet, that frequency map, what do you do with it?
You use it as ammunition. When you go to law enforcement, you avoid emotional language. You don't say, they're being mean to me.
Because feelings can be dismissed.
Exactly. Instead, you say, I am reporting a pattern of surveillance, synchronicity, and asset tracking. You present the spreadsheet. You frame the gestures as indecent exposure, the bike stunts as public nuisance. You speak the language of the law.
And it's backed by cold, hard data.
It removes the he said, she said element.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it protects your own mind. It's not happening to you anymore. It's a phenomenon you are observing.
So to recap this whole journey, you start by feeling isolated, like these weird coincidences are driving you crazy.
Then you realize it's not a coincidence, it's a coordinated harassment campaign. You see the phases, you see the system, the synchronicity.
And instead of reacting, you implement the SOP.
Yeah.
You get the cameras, the reflective film, and you start that spreadsheet. You turn the harassment into data.
You dismantle the mystery. The report says the whole system relies on the target's emotional reaction. If you don't give them that reaction, the system fails.
It's a powerful message. The most powerful tool here isn't a weapon. It's a spreadsheet.
And call mind.
Exactly. Well, this has been a fascinating, if a bit chilling, look into a very shadowy world. We hope you never have to use this information, but just knowing it exists changes how you look at the street outside your window.
Before we go, though, I want to leave you with a final thought. This entire strategy of defense, it relies on stripping away emotion. You stop being a person who gets annoyed, and you become an analyst who just collects data.
You become a machine to fight the machine.
Yeah. Right. So the question is, if you strip away all that emotion and you view your neighbors purely as actors and assets in a database, does the harassment cease to exist because you've solved it? Or does it cease to matter because you have fundamentally changed? Have you defeated the war, or have you just become a different kind of soldier?
That is something to think about. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay safe, stay observant, and we'll see you next time.